Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz is in Washington for talks with President Trump. Merz is the first foreign leader to visit the White House since the US and Israel attacked Iran. Germany is not taking part in the attacks, but speaking in the Oval Office, Merz said that Germany was on the, quote, same page as the US in wanting to get rid of the Iranian regime. Donald Trump, meanwhile, claimed that Iran would have attacked first if the US and Israel had not acted when they did.
We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people, people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
So we, as I said, in Germany the last 2 days, we are supporting the United States and Israel to get rid of this terrible terrorist regime. And we are looking forward to a day after, and we have to talk about the strategy, what is following after this regime is away, and we have to strategize on this entire region, and we are having a high interest in common approach and common work and what we can do, and this is important not just for the Americans. This is extremely important for Europe and extremely important for Israel and their security. So we are really looking forward to find ways how to deal about the day after.
I'm now joined by DW's chief political editor, Michaela Küfner, who is in Washington traveling with the Chancellor, and our senior political correspondent, Simon Young, from DW's Berlin bureau. Michaela, I want to start with you. As we've seen, Merz has just met Trump in the Oval Office, and they had a press conference. Describe to us, what was the mood like there?
Well, I was in the room, and it's the usual media mayhem inside. But this was also the first opportunity for the press here in the United States, but also international press, to ask questions on Iran. And that's where really the focus of this was. And it was quite telling that when I asked Donald Trump what expectations he has towards the Europeans, he lashed out against Spain, saying he didn't want to do trade with Spain anymore at all. This is what he says. That doesn't necessarily mean he will act on it, but also criticism for Britain, for UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who hesitated to allow the US to use its air bases. So the overarching concern by Friedrich Merz, who most of the time was sitting there unless he was specifically addressed, was to try and get through this. And in the talks we know that are taking place over lunch, to get some kind of idea whether there is any kind of concept for the day when this fighting is over. Donald Trump has said he expects 4 weeks, but he also said in this Oval Office meeting that the people he had in mind potentially to lead Iran in the future, to have some kind of Venezuela setup, that those were killed. And he seemed slightly humoured by that. So that was quite a moment to observe that.
Simon here in Berlin. Merz is obviously walking a bit of a tightrope there on Iran, not endorsing the strikes, but also not criticizing them. It seems to have gone down quite well with Donald Trump, but how is Merz justifying this balancing act back home?
Yeah, Gerhard, I think he has moved, in fact, some way towards almost endorsing these strikes. He said in that meeting in the White House there that Germany and the US are on the same page when it comes to getting rid of the clerics and the regime. I think that the wider point is, Merz says there's no point in pushing back directly and criticising the actions of President Trump, the US and Israel, because Germany doesn't really have the strongest case. In the past, Germany's supported efforts to achieve a negotiated settlement on Iran's nuclear program. Well, they haven't borne much fruit. So that's why Merz has been saying now is not the time to lecture partners and allies. what he's trying to do there is to avoid angering Donald Trump. We'll remember almost exactly a year ago when President Zelensky was sitting next to Donald Trump in the Oval Office and the sort of car crash meeting between the two in front of the press that happened there. You don't want to provoke Donald Trump. You want to find points of agreement where you can. But nonetheless, there is concern in Germany about the fact that there's not much legal justification in international law for these attacks. And also there are concerns about whether this war might spread and what comes after.
Michaela, Merz obviously wanted to discuss trade and tariffs when this meeting was planned, but now it's all overshadowed by the war. Do you think Merz will get to talk trade?
Well, he certainly has his mind very much set on that. The sense that we got travelling with him here is that he would not leave that table, that lunch table, without having addressed the very issue of Ukraine. There's a huge concern that the US continue to put pressure on Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, to hand over territory that is not currently occupied by Russia, which would rob the Ukrainians of that line of contact that they are holding like a fortress at this moment in time. And then, of course, there's the huge concern in Europe over the tariff regime that was negotiated, now hasn't been ratified by either side. It's already lopsided. The Europeans willing to pay 15% tariffs on their goods. The US gets zero in exchange. Here, Donald Trump did say to a journalist question that all the partners before still seem keen on the previous deals that had been done before, of course, that consequential Supreme Court ruling here in the US who threw those deals out of the window, essentially, but that he would want to return to that. And he can take some hope from that this very lopsided deal, at the very least, could be the one he comes out of the White House with.
Now, Simon, Merz is the first European leader to meet Trump since the Iran escalation. How high are expectations in Berlin that he can influence, at least, US strategy, or is Europe once again completely sidelined?
Well, I don't know what are the possibilities for influencing the thinking of Donald Trump. Some have tried. Not many have succeeded. I think Chancellor Merz knows that, and it's clear that Europe is not in the driving seat here. This is an operation being carried out by the US and Israel together, and Germany's not standing in the way. But what Merz, I think, can do is to talk to Trump about what the European concerns are, particularly economic fallout of this conflict. The oil prices going up. There can be further knock-on effects for Europe's economies. There could potentially be migration effects if if the civilian populations in the region are come under attack or feel the need to flee. And as I said, there are questions about the war spreading and what other impacts it could have. So I think those are the things where where Merz can sort of talk to Trump. What he probably won't do is what a lot of opposition politicians have asked him to do here, namely talk about things like international law and the rule of law, because those are the kind of lecturing points that I don't think President Trump would be likely to listen to.
Michaela, do you think that Washington is reading Germany's caution there as enough support?
Well, he praised the German Chancellor as a friend and praised German contributions. And I'm sure that Friedrich Merz will try and avoid getting into the territory of having to contribute something to this in Iran. That doesn't appear to be the case right now, and that's exactly where he will want to leave it.
DW's chief political editor Michaela Kübner there, and our senior political correspondent Simon Young in Berlin. Thank you both very much.